the woman possessed an extremely dangerous superpower that could release powerful electric currents from her body, instantly killing people around them, and even turning high-rise buildings within hundreds of meters into ruins. Yet, this formidable superpowered being had lost her memory. When she woke up, she was lying alone on a rain-soaked road. There were many bodies around her. The gruesome sight was unbearable for her. The woman hurriedly fled the scene. However, no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't recall any of her previous memories. This left her feeling even more helpless. Just then, she discovered a mysterious note in her pocket. It seemed to be something she had written herself. From its contents, the woman learned that her name was Vandini. It appeared she was being hunted. The note advised her to find an anonymous hotel to rest, then to avoid surveillance cameras at all costs. Although Vandini didn't understand why this was happening to her, she followed the instructions on the note and found an anonymous hotel and used the money she had left to book a suite. At this moment, Vandini finally had time to sort through her belongings. Inside her jacket, Vandini found another note. This note was clearly prepared with more time. The content was also more detailed. According to what was written on the note, Vandini learned that she was being hunted at that time. She had learned through some means that she would soon forget everything, but there was no way to resolve it. She didn't know who wanted to kill her. So, Vandini decided to take advantage of her amnesia to escape her past. However, considering that her amnesia might lead her to harbor resentment and possibly seek revenge, she prepared another set of documents. These contained all the information about her life before her amnesia. She stored it in a safe deposit box at a bank. The letter included a red key, which was the key to the safe. The other blue key was meant to help her start a new life. At the end of the letter, Vandini specifically warned that if she opened the safe with the red key, her life would return to being surrounded by dangers. She hoped her amnesiac self would think carefully. Vandini didn't know what had happened in the past. She carried those two keys to the bank recorded in the letter, hoping to retrieve her two sets of items from the front desk. However, before she could finish speaking, an unexpected incident occurred. When Vandini woke up again, the bank clerk was with another unknown man, dragging her somewhere she didn't know. Vandini shouted loudly, hoping someone would come to her aid, but the two just scoffed, saying this was the bank's vault, and no one would come. Seeing no hope for help, Vandini pleaded with them to let her go. After all, she didn't know anything, but the man responded with a cryptic remark.
Because of what you are, and what you're worth.
Vandini thought they were going to sell her off to Myanmar, and immediately struggled harder. But as a woman, she couldn't break free from their hold. Just as she was about to lose hope, both of them suddenly collapsed. Vandini's hands also turned black, as if they had been scorched by electricity. This bizarre phenomenon filled Vandini with confusion, but obviously, now wasn't the time to investigate further. She immediately took out the key and began searching for her safe deposit box. Vandini first found the one for the red key. Upon opening it, she found only a few items inside. Vandini took everything out and was about to continue searching for the blue safe when she suddenly noticed that the woman among the two had woken up. She was almost reaching for the alarm. Vandini didn't know if this would attract more enemies, so she abandoned the search for the blue safe and quickly fled the bank. Meanwhile, the place where Vandini had woken up last night was now surrounded by a crowd. Some of them were police officers, while most were onlookers. Just then, a mysterious blonde woman suddenly burst onto the scene. After a few words, these police officers all left. The reason this happened was entirely due to the woman's special identity. Her name was Linda, and she belonged to a covert unit in the UK. She had extremely high authority. For reasons unknown, she had taken over this case. Moreover, the woman seemed to know the true identity of the killer. She kept whispering something in a low voice after Vandini left the bank. After leaving the bank, Vandini opened the envelope he had received from the safe, which contained a tablet, a note, and a key. Carefully reading the information on the note, Vandini learned that it contained the location of a hotel. The key was for a room at that hotel. In addition, the tablet contained many records of her investigations, left at the hotel before her amnesia. Soon after, Vandini arrived at the hotel mentioned in the note, and cautiously entered to take a look. She found that there was no ambush as she had expected, which allowed her to relax a little. She quickly scanned her surroundings. It looked like just an ordinary residence, without anything particularly unusual. Vandini took out the tablet in confusion. hoping it would contain useful information. As she powered on the tablet, a video popped up first. The person in the video appeared to be Vandini herself. She first described her own physical characteristics, such as a scar in a specific location. She mentioned allergies to certain foods as well. After verification, these matched Vandini's own characteristics perfectly. Then, she just started telling her story. According to the video content, Vandini learned that she served the British government and belonged to a unit called Chikwe. This unit had high-level authority. However, there were no public records of it. Most of the organization's members were various types of mutants with unique superpowers. Just then, the video suddenly cut off. At the end of the footage, it seemed to guide Vandini to a specific room. Although she didn't know why, Vandini decided to follow the instruction. Upon entering the room, Vandini found it to be like a documentation room. There were many photos pinned on the bulletin board. Next to it, the computer displayed the other half of the video. The Vandini in the video continued to narrate. The people on the bulletin board were all members of the Chikwe organization, each possessing various superpowers. The person in the top left corner is the leader of the Chikwe organization named Linda, who is a trustworthy person. The others might also be trustworthy. Just then, the hotel doorbell suddenly rang. Vandini cautiously peered through the peephole and found a blonde woman standing there. It was Linda from the photo. Recalling what she had mentioned earlier, she immediately opened the door for her. As soon as Linda entered, she told Vandini about what she had to say.
Everything in here, it's been all over CCTV. Boots too. Is that we need to get you to work now.
Vandini showed a confused expression. After a careful inquiry, Linda realized that Vandini had lost her memory, so she briefly explained her identity and some details about the Chikwe organization. She informed Vandini that she would never harm her. Then, Linda handed Vandini a pill and told her that before her amnesia, she had exhibited signs of losing control mentally multiple times. This was a medication that could help stabilize her mind. Although Vandini felt uncertain, she didn't show it, and immediately took the pill as Linda requested. Seeing Vandini so obedient, Linda stopped saying anything more. She turned and left the hotel. However, after the door closed, Vandini spat out the pill. Although the video instructed her to trust Linda, Vandini was still unsure whether her guidance at that time was reliable. After all, she hadn't found her pursuers even before her amnesia. After sending Linda off, Vandini continued to watch the remaining videos. As time passed, the Vandini in the video began to show signs of mental instability. Could it be that what Linda said was true? If so, then she should return to the stronghold of the Chikwe organization, as Linda suggested. So, the next day, Linda arrived at an unfamiliar building. This was the Chikwe organization's base. There were strangers all around, which made Vandini feel very uncomfortable. Just then, a blonde man suddenly greeted Vandini. Although she didn't know his identity, he appeared quite friendly, so Vandini followed his lead and responded. However, he began to ask deeper questions, especially about where Vandini had been during her disappearance. Vandini herself didn't even know the answer. She could only make up an excuse about being sick. Fortunately, he seemed not to notice, which allowed Vandini to get by. But this guy seemed to have more to say. The blonde man led Vandini to a corner and apologized to her. Vandini had no idea what was going on. She could only follow the other person's words and show forgiveness for his behavior. The blonde man was very pleased with this outcome. He finally left Vandini's side. However, before she could relax, another young blonde woman approached Vandini. She hadn't been present during the earlier conversation, but she expressed satisfaction with the result. In addition, Vandini also discovered that the man and woman spoke at the same time. Vandini didn't know why. She just wanted to get away from these two strange people. She managed to escape them, but before Vandini could catch her breath, someone else approached her again. However, this time it wasn't anything strange, but rather a normal work report. During her absence, there were many matters within the organization that needed Vandini's approval and handling. She didn't understand any of this yet, but it didn't prevent them from sending the documents to her office. She could take her time to handle them later. Vandini once again managed to get by. She arrived at her office. Finally, she could take a deep breath. However, Vandini didn't dare to relax too much. She still remembered being hunted, so she began rummaging through her office to see if there were any clues recorded. In one of the drawers, she actually found a note. Seeing the contents of the note, Vandini was once again stunned. The note stated that the mastermind might be within the Chikwe organization and was constantly monitoring her. The last sentence hastily written on the note made Vandini even more panicked.
Don't trust anyone.
This clearly conflicted with the previous message. What exactly had Vandini experienced during this time? Regardless, Vandini was now on high alert towards everyone. In the Chikue organization, it felt as if everyone was constantly watching her. Just then, she received news calling her to a meeting. Vandini could only go there. In the conference room, besides the Chikue members, there was also the British Home Secretary. She was there mainly to hold them accountable. 10 people had died at the location where Vandini had awakened, and all of them were mutants. This was a major security issue, and the Chikue organization needed to provide an explanation quickly. Under the pressure from the Home Secretary, the 4 Chikue members sitting across from Vandini strangely responded in unison that they would do so promptly. This gave the Home Secretary a way to ease the tension. With the 4's response, the Home Secretary's tone softened considerably, inquiring about the current progress of the investigation. Only then did she learn that although these people had died almost simultaneously, their causes of death were entirely different. Among the deceased at the scene, there was an agent from the American Mutant Organization. He had gone missing during a previous mission. It was unclear why he had appeared at the scene. After hearing the Chikue's report on the case details, the Home Secretary realized the complexity of the situation might far exceed what was apparent, so she only instructed Linda to expedite things. The reporters were conducting a thorough investigation, and even if she used her power to suppress the heat, it wouldn't last long. After speaking, the Home Secretary left the Chikue base. At this moment, Vandini looked somewhat pale. She suspected that her superpower had caused the deaths of these 10 people. However, such a blatant anomaly naturally drew the attention of the other Chikue members. Linda noticed this situation and immediately arranged work for everyone. After the meeting ended, she took Vandini aside. The two arrived at a secluded corner. Before Linda spoke up to comfort Vandini and told her not to think too much, she stated that although Vandini had superpowers, from previous observations, it wasn't a powerful ability and couldn't cause the destruction at the crime scene. Hearing Linda's comforting words, Vandini relaxed a little. She then inquired about the blonde man's situation. Only then did she learn that the 4 blonde men were a type of special superpowered individuals, known as gestalts. Although they appeared to be 4 separate individuals, they actually shared a single mental soul. This is why they seemed to be in perfect harmony. After calming Vandini, Linda took her to a laboratory to try to help Vandini recover her memories. However, no matter how hard the researchers tried, Vandini still couldn't recall anything. Although she felt a bit disappointed, it was also somewhat expected. Soon after, Vandini arrived at the crime scene to assist with the investigation. At this moment, the staff discovered a special substance. This was a special glass-like material formed by high-voltage electricity instantly melting sand. This indicated that at the time of the incident, there were once powerful lightning-based superpowers on site. This discovery again caused Vandini to worry. Perhaps it was indeed her who had killed those people. This made Vandini's feelings very complex. She wanted to know the truth but was filled with anxiety, fearing that she might have been the one to kill them. She wanted to escape this place, but just then, she was stopped by a gestalt. Fortunately, the individual was just curious as to why Vandini was there. Vandini briefly explained her purpose, and the person didn't ask further questions. Using the car keys left from before her amnesia, Vandini found her car in the parking lot. She habitually checked her surroundings and discovered a note again. The note contained her own previous writings. Vandini realized that the car had been prepared for departure long ago. The spare tire in the trunk was stuffed with cash from various countries, enough for her to make a clean getaway. Without any hesitation, Vandini immediately drove away. But she didn't drive far, and Linda suddenly called. When Vandini answered, she realized her whereabouts had been exposed. Linda demanded that she return to the Chikue organization, having finally found an opportunity to leave. Vandini naturally refused to comply. After hanging up, she continued driving furiously. Meanwhile, the Chikue organization was investigating the deceased's residence. Leading the investigation was a gestalt and a woman named Monica. The first thing they investigated was the residence of the American agent. For some reason, Monica seemed very familiar with the place, and even knew the agent's habits very well. She claimed that he liked to hide things in the water tank. The gestalt believed her without doubt, and went to investigate the water tank. However, after sending him away, Monica went to the bathroom. She skillfully retrieved a device from under the sink, and secretly hid it. At this moment, the Gestalt investigating the water tank returned, and reported that no clues had been found there. Monica simply stated flatly that they should continue the investigation, without revealing the item she had taken. After struggling with her thoughts, Vandini ultimately returned to the Chikue organization. Vandini entered the morgue, with the last glimmer of hope, hoping to confirm with the coroner that these people had not died because of her. However, she asked rather gently, inquiring about the cause of death. The coroner was unaware of Vandini's intentions, and merely informed her that all these individuals had died from external injuries, such as fractures and lacerations, and even suffocation. Upon hearing this, Vandini relaxed a little. This indeed wasn't caused by lightning powers. However, the coroner's next statement once again plunged her into despair.
That's the only unifying thread between these victims. Extreme internal muscle spasms. Whoever did this tortured 10 people to death. Can't imagine how they live with themselves.
Muscle spasms are a typical characteristic of lightning-based abilities. This led Vandini to some speculation. Could it be that she had used her lightning powers to capture these people, and then cruelly tortured them to death? Vandini dared not think further. She could only hurriedly escape the morgue, and dared not take another glance. Meanwhile, others in the Chikue organization were making progress. The organization's second-in-command Kelly discovered that these deceased were all connected to a mutant organization called Luggate. This was a notorious dark force, involved in kidnapping, human trafficking, smuggling, and other areas. He couldn't help but speculate that perhaps these Luggate members were hunting a powerful mutant, and were counter-killed by their target. So, Kelly found some members of the Luggate organization, and used his powers to interrogate them. Kelly obtained some information. At that time, they were indeed hunting, and the target was Chikue member Vandini. Although this answered some of Kelly's speculations, it raised even more questions. First, Vandini was just a weak superpowered individual. How could she possibly have counter-killed so many Luggate members? Secondly, Luggate dared to attack government forces. To resolve these questions, he released this member of Luggate, so that he could inform the leader of Luggate, and hoped to have a meeting with him. At this time, after leaving the coroner's office, Vandini increasingly doubted the Chikue organization she was in, so she searched online for relevant information. There were no official statements or reports, only some rumors floating around. Moreover, these were all very negative. For example, there were allegations of cruelly training children, and taking various superpowered children away from their parents. These public opinions made Vandini even more certain that the Chikue organization wasn't as just as it appeared. Perhaps she was also one of the deceived. What she didn't know was that her situation had already been reported to the Home Secretary by Kelly. She came to hold Linda accountable for why Vandini's situation had been concealed. Linda immediately stated,
I had good reason not to inform you myself. I assumed that you'd want to maintain deniability.
This reason was perfect. It also fully considered the interests of the Home Secretary. Thus, her expression changed instantly. She asked Linda how she planned to handle the matter. Linda already had a plan for this, and claimed to the outside that it was a case of mass suicide. The specific reasons were still under investigation. After that, they just needed to find a scapegoat to resolve the issue. After a brief consideration, the Home Secretary agreed that it was indeed a feasible plan. Having finally sent off the Home Secretary, Linda needed to take stock of the situation. Few people were aware of this matter. At this moment, someone suddenly came knocking. Clearly, someone had leaked information. The most likely suspect was Kelly. A long time ago, there had been rumors about his close relationship with the Home Secretary, so Linda went directly to Kelly to question him about his intentions. In response to Linda's questioning, Kelly quickly made up an excuse. Although Linda was very displeased with this, because of his connections with the Home Secretary, she couldn't do anything to Kelly. Vandini was in a state of confusion, and didn't have the mind to observe her surroundings. She was being followed by a group of unknown individuals. Just then, Linda called to inform Vandini about Kelly's situation, and hoped that Vandini would act cautiously. Taking the opportunity, Vandini told Linda about being followed. She requested that someone be sent to assist her. After hearing Vandini's description, Linda immediately dispatched the Gestalts. She also instructed Vandini to head to a crowded area. Thus, Vandini immediately plunged into the crowd. However, the pursuers seemed completely unafraid. As time went on, they actually began to accelerate their pursuit. Vandini took off running. The distance between them continued to close. At this moment, a member of the Gestalt rushed out from the side and engaged in a struggle with one of the pursuers. He directed Vandini to run towards the subway. With the help of her companion, Vandini managed to create some distance again and ran toward the subway station. Just barely. She made it onto the subway before the doors closed. However, the feeling of being watched didn't dissipate. Vandini nervously scanned the crowd around her. Just then, another man burst out. Vandini immediately fled again. Two members of the Gestalt approached head-on and helped Vandini subdue the pursuer.
Everyone stay calm!
Vandini could finally breathe a little easier. However, this wasn't the end. When the subway arrived at the station, another man emerged from the crowd. Moreover, he was carrying a weapon. He accurately locked onto Vandini's silhouette in the crowd and shot her down with one bullet. However, when the man checked, he found that it wasn't Vandini. It was actually the Gestalt woman. It turned out that on the subway, Tiffany had exchanged clothes with this person. Now, under the escort of the Gestalts, she had already left the subway station. The plans of these mysterious individuals were thus foiled. Soon after, the man who had fired in the subway was captured. The subdued Gestalt woman was also urgently sent to the hospital. The man had used a tranquilizer dart, so he hadn't caused fatal harm. However, this further confirmed that someone wanted to capture Vandini alive. Why on earth would they do this? Perhaps some answers could be obtained through interrogation. However, shortly after being captured, the man entered a state resembling death. If it weren't for the specialized personnel in the Chikue organization, they might not have discovered that he was only faking death. Through investigation and analysis, the man appeared to be human, but he was actually a special kind of creature, capable of voluntarily entering a death-like state. In this state, he could resist adverse influences from his surroundings. He remained in this death-like state, and ordinary methods couldn't pry open his mouth. Thus, no useful information could be obtained. Linda announced that this guy was the killer behind the previous 10 murders. She publicly claimed to be a psychopathic killer who first kidnapped the target and then slowly tortured to death. As for the specifics, Linda handed it over to Kelly to handle. This matter was bound to anger the Luggate organization, making Kelly the scapegoat. How could Kelly not know about Linda's plan? But even if he knew, what could he do? However, before that, Kelly indeed had many questions that needed answers from the Luggate organization. Others might not be able to pry open this guy's mouth, but Kelly had his methods. His ability was to manipulate air, which was very suitable for interrogation. Before long, the dead guy came back to life and answered Kelly's questions obediently. When asked why the Luggate organization had targeted Vandini, his response was rather intriguing.
Well, she could be valuable in the right hands. You failed to bring her to her full potential.
However, what the actual reason was, the man didn't reveal. Most of the questions that followed were answered by men as useless, whether it was true or intentional concealment. So Kelly shifted the questions to recruitment matters. After all, this special ability of faking death could have unexpected effects in many situations. However, after Kelly brought this up, the man displayed extreme resistance.
You rip children away from their families. And yet you call me the vulture.
Under his ridicule, the atmosphere began to grow tense. Linda immediately stepped in to stop it, and suggested that Kelly take a break for the day. She also hoped the man would think it over properly. However, after everyone left, Vandini sneaked into the cell. She was very curious why the Luggate organization arrest her. In response to her question, the man spoke frankly. He simply wanted to sell her. But was it really that simple? To go after some money? To target a British government official? The man's next words sent a chill down Vandini's spine.
Your superiors were fine to hand you over without a kiss goodbye.
The man seemed to sense Vandini's inner thoughts. Whether it was sowing discord or recounting the truth, he continued speaking. However, in terms of effect, it truly made Vandini begin to worry about who in the Chikue organization had betrayed her. She even began to suspect that her amnesia might have been caused by someone from the Chikue organization. Therefore, Vandini secretly infiltrated the medical room to search for information related to herself. She remembered Linda saying that she had been extremely unstable mentally before her amnesia. Could this be related to her condition? However, when Vandini found her files, she discovered that most of the content had been nearly completely destroyed. Only at the very bottom was there a signature with information about Glengrove House. Perhaps she could find the secret of her amnesia here. Thus, Vandini immediately drove to Glengrove house. However, when she arrived, the sight before her once again shocked Vandini. It was just an empty lot. There were no buildings at all. How could a hospital disappear so suddenly, and still be so clean? Vandini approached to investigate in disbelief. She found a special object on the ground. It was the same glass-like sand. This indicated that a powerful current had once flowed here. If it wasn't from another lightning-based superpowered individual, then it could only be related to Vandini. What exactly had happened here? Meanwhile, Monica arrived at an auction house. Through a device found in the agent's house, after paying 50,000 euros, she gained entry. An oil painting called Memory was currently being auctioned off on site. However, it was neither a famous artist's work, nor did it hold much artistic value. The buyers in the audience were more and more fervent. They drove the price up to 50 million euros. The reason for this bizarre situation was that this auction actually concealed a mystery. The painting was merely a hint. The actual auction item was a superpowered individual. The painting was titled Memory. It hinted that this person's ability was related to memory. After the auction ended, two men loaded a cage onto a transport vehicle. Clearly, the cage contained the superpowered individual. Monica immediately drove after them. However, at an intersection, she was temporarily blocked for a moment. By the time she caught up again, the transport truck was already parked by the roadside. Two escorts were confronting each other with guns. It appeared that neither recognized the other. At this moment, Monica noticed that the trunk of the car had been opened. There was no one inside. Clearly, the superpowered individual had escaped. Monica subdued the two escorts, and then reported to the Chikue organization. Linda found the figure of the mutant by reviewing the surveillance footage at the crime scene. He was a young man in yellow clothing. Before Linda could examine it closely, her phone suddenly received a text message. It appeared to be from the young man in yellow. Linda immediately replied to the message and instructed him to go to a certain square. Then, Linda personally went to the designated location to look for the person marked as Nachum. However, Linda waited at the scene for a long time, but didn't see any young man in yellow. Linda seemed to suspect something, and then proactively left the square. As she left, the man in yellow also left from a building in the distance. It was unclear what kind of relationship the two had. Within the Chikue organization, Vandini returned from Glengrove House and had her assistant investigate her previous hospitalization. She quickly discovered that she had received treatment from a doctor named Andrew for a period of time. According to the records, he was currently at some location. To find out what had actually happened back then, Vandini immediately returned home to pack her things and set off. However, for some reason, Kelly was here, but because Vandini was preoccupied with thoughts of Andrew, she didn't notice Kelly hiding. As for why he was here, it has to do with events that occurred earlier. Kelly had discovered that the Luggate organization had repeatedly targeted Vandini and was already full of doubts. Additionally, the strange words of that man made Kelly suspect that Vandini might be hiding some major secrets. Considering that she had lost her memory, he knew that asking wouldn't yield any useful clues. So, Kelly sneaked into her home to search, and was almost caught by Vandini. However, this trip wasn't entirely fruitless. Kelly found the blue key. He recognized which bank vault it belonged to, but what puzzled Kelly was that this bank was also an asset of the Luggate organization. Why was Vandini connected to them? Meanwhile, within the Chikue organization, Monica, who was responsible for interrogating the two drivers, was also very agitated. She couldn't obtain any useful clues at all. Fortunately, with the help of the Gestalts, they managed to find the yellow-clad man's whereabouts. Among the numerous surveillance feeds, the surveillance footage showed that this guy had recently been in contact with a police officer. Monica and the others immediately set off. However, the situation on site once again shocked them. This police officer, like the two escorts, had lost all his memory. He didn't even know who he was. The clues were interrupted again. Vandini drove to the location mentioned in the file. There, she met the doctor named Andrew. From him, she learned some of the truth from back then. According to Dr. Andrew, Vandini had actually been here for superpower activation treatment. The mental therapy was just a cover story. Later, through various experiments, it was discovered that emotions could help Vandini better activate the superpowers within her body. So, the Chikue organization proposed a plan to gradually cultivate the relationship between Andrew and Fantini during their contact. Once they reached a certain level of intimacy, Andrew would propose a breakup. Under the arrangement of the Chikue organization, the two quickly fell in love. However, as they continued to interact, Andrew fell in love with Vandini. As a result, he began to hesitate about whether to execute the Chikue organization's plan. However, at this moment, Vandini discovered Andrew's secret. Under the immense shock, Vandini erupted with powerful lightning energy. The Glengrove house, where she was at the time, was instantly obliterated by Vandini. Dozens of patients inside died on the spot. Such a powerful superpower even made the Chikue organization feel dread. In order to suppress Vandini from experiencing such intense emotional fluctuations again, they obtained some drugs from Andrew to suppress Vandini's emotions, which were the ones Linda gave Vandini before. Upon learning this cruel truth, Vandini believed that he had been betrayed, and became even more convinced by the Luggate members' claim that someone had sold her out to the Luggate. After returning to her residence, Vandini went into a frenzy and smashed the bottles containing the drugs. But just then, there was a sudden knock at the door. Vandini looked through the peephole. She saw a young man in yellow clothing. Vandini didn't recognize him, but she still asked if he needed help, only to receive a shocking answer.
My name is Nazim Arifat. I'm the one who wiped your memory.
Vandini immediately let the young man in. She asked him what was going on. According to Nachum, he had recently been in a refugee camp, but one day, a woman named Bronwyn suddenly approached him and claimed to need Nachum's help with something. After the task was completed, he wouldn't only be able to escape his refugee status, but also enter a special school for study. After graduation, he would directly become a member of the British government. Nachum happily agreed, and what she demands was to erase Vandini's memory. Now that she understood the whole story, Vandini believed that Nachum was just being used. The real culprit was that Bronwyn. So, she didn't make things difficult for Nachum, but instead showed him concern. Afterward, Vandini continued to ask about Bronwyn. Regarding this person, Nachum didn't know much either, because after he completed the task, he was immediately captured, and had never seen her again. Not long ago, he escaped from those people, and tried to contact Bronwyn by phone, but he found that the person who arrived was another woman he had never seen before. Based on his description, Vandini had Nachum check the photos on the bulletin board. He was very certain that the person was Linda. Upon hearing this news, Vandini felt even more convinced that Linda had betrayed her. At this time, Linda, who was suspected of being the mastermind, was talking to a female prisoner in a secret prison. Through their conversation, it was revealed that the female inmate was Bronwyn. The content of their discussion seemed to be about a deal involving Vandini. It could be faintly heard that Bronwyn planned to use a superpowered individual to exchange for Vandini with Linda. Could she really be the mastermind? At the Luggate Bank, Kelly easily found the corresponding vault using the blue key. Inside, he found a large number of foreign passports and a lot of foreign currency. In addition, there was a mobile phone and a tablet. Clearly, Vandini had been preparing to smuggle herself out of the UK. Connecting this matter to the Luggate organization, Kelly instantly had some speculations. Therefore, Kelly took all the items away as evidence for later. He then cracked the phone's password and called the last contact in it. To his surprise, the contact was the leader of the Luggate organization. When the leader heard Kelly's voice, he immediately hung up the phone. Kelly personally went to find the leader of the Luggate organization to inquire about what was going on. However, the leader's response made him even more puzzled.
She stepped into ours. Said she needed an emergency exit in place. A one-way ticket prepaid.
The leader of the Luggate organization had no intention of further explanation. He ordered his subordinates to see Kelly out. The situation became increasingly murky, under the cover of various riddlers. Meanwhile, Vandini approached Linda to question about Andrew's matter, hoping that she could provide a reasonable explanation. However, Linda stated that these plans had been made with Vandini's consent, but the subsequent outcome was beyond everyone's expectations. This answer was difficult for Vandini to accept. Before she could continue pressing for answers, Linda was called away to a meeting. The Home Secretary demanded that the Chikue organization temporarily halt their current work and focus all efforts on searching for the missing Nachum. Once such a powerful ability was obtained by malicious individuals, the consequences would be unimaginable. However, this didn't include Linda. She had been relieved of all her duties by the Home Secretary and was temporarily staying at the Chikue organization because not long ago, Kelly had reported her to the Home Secretary. Additionally, in recent times, the higher-ups received reports that her relationship with Kelly was inappropriate. This led the Home Secretary to suspect that Linda was behind the scenes causing trouble. Thus, this operation was initiated. The higher the official position, the greater the power. Although Linda was a mutant, she could only obey orders within the system. On the other hand, Vandini was unable to get the answers she wanted from Linda, and began to probe other people for information. She discovered another secret. All along, Monica had been very concerned about the case of the 10 deaths, especially the American agent involved. Vandini unexpectedly learned that this person was Monica's lover. When Monica found out that the agent had died alongside a member of the Luggate organization, and was suspected to be one of them, she decided to find out the truth and clear her lover's name. With common interests in mind, Vandini invited her to form an alliance. Monica readily agreed. However, after joining Vandini's group, she learned another shocking piece of information. According to Nachum, when he was in the refugee camp, Monica's lover had also been present. However, he didn't know his name. Later, it was through this American agent that Nachum fell into the hands of the Luggate organization. Upon hearing this, Monica found it hard to accept. If what Nachum said was true, then it was almost certain that her lover was indeed a member of the Luggate organization. But after spending so much time with him, how could she not have noticed anything? Monica was very confused at this point. Nowadays, all the questions could only be answered by finding the woman named Bronwyn. Therefore, Vandini arranged for Nachum to contact Bronwyn again, while she and Monica would observe from the periphery. However, what she didn't know was that Kelly had also begun to suspect Vandini. He instructed members of the Chikwe organization to monitor her. All of Vandini's actions were closely watched by Kelly. Now, with her sudden, unusual behavior, Kelly immediately ordered his subordinates to arrest Vandini. Thus, when Vandini and the others had just found Bronwyn, they were controlled by the ambushed Gestalts. However, at this moment, another unexpected event occurred. The decommissioned Linda unexpectedly appeared here. Using her powerful sonic abilities, she instantly controlled everyone. This indiscriminate area attack affected many people. Afterward, Linda brought everyone back to the Chikwe organization. In the next moment, the Home Secretary summoned her. Although Linda demonstrated great abilities and brought Nachum back to the organization, she had defied orders beforehand. The Home Secretary didn't reward her. Instead, he ordered her to reflect in prison. Kelly also began to interrogate Vandini and questioning her about the purpose of her contact with the Luggate organization. In response to Kelly's questions, Vandini was completely clueless. Seeing she couldn't hide anything, she could only reveal to him that she had lost her memory. Vandini showed Kelly the contents of her tablet. Only then did Kelly confirm that Vandini had truly lost her memory. Combined with this clue, many previous events now had reasonable explanations for Vandini's actions. Next, Vandini revealed a shocking secret. She disclosed to Kelly that after her investigation during this time, it was likely that Linda was behind the scenes manipulating, collaborating with the Luggate organization, and erasing her memories. Such astonishing news naturally made Kelly hesitant to decide lightly. He needed to investigate the truth of it thoroughly. After Vandini left the interrogation room, she immediately used Nachum's phone to contact Bronwyn. Vandini was desperate to know what had happened at that time. Bronwyn responded immediately, and they agreed on a meeting location. Vandini hurried to the location. However, what Vandini didn't expect was that as soon as they met, Bronwyn began to butter her up.
I'm your family. Your real family. All that's left of it.
Vandini naturally didn't believe this line of reasoning. After all, in all the videos so far, there was no mention of her having a sister. Regarding Vandini's doubts, Bronwyn seemed to have anticipated them. So, she showed Vandini several pieces of evidence. These were some old photographs, featuring a family of 4. In addition, there was a special room. Bronwyn stated that this was the room Vandini had lived in. With this entire set of evidence, Vandini began to believe Bronwyn's claims. She asked what had actually happened back then, and thus unraveled the event's origins and conclusions. According to Bronwyn, when Vandini was very young, she had already shown signs of superpower potential. The members of the Chikwe organization came home and forcibly took Vandini for training. Since then, her family had never seen her again. Her mother passed away from grief over it, and her father died shortly afterward. Therefore, Bronwyn's heart was filled with hatred for the Chikwe organization. She had tried multiple times to contact the media to expose the Chikwe organization's actions. However, they were a secret unit of the British government, and there were no records whatsoever. Moreover, they could pressure the media through their power. In the end, the results were all inconclusive. Later, Bronwyn learned of Vandini's existence by chance. She hoped to take her away to start anew. However, Linda from the Chikwe organization never agreed, because after years of training, Vandini knew many secrets of the Chikwe organization. If they let her go, it could result in significant losses, unless they could erase Vandini's memory. Thus, Bronwyn began to search for mutants with relevant abilities around the world. Eventually, she found Nachum, and so, Bronwyn and her friend, the American agent, went to the refugee camp to find him, and brought him to the UK. Bronwyn returned to Linda with Nachum's information. This time, she agreed. However, as a cost, Nachum needed to be left with the Chikwe organization. In order to save Vandini, Bronwyn didn't hesitate at all. Afterward, Bronwyn took Nachum to find Vandini, hoping to erase her memory. The two would then escape together. However, for some reason, at that time, Vandini seemed to be in a panic, and was planning to drive away alone, and her friend, the American agent, was beside her. Later, when Vandini heard about memory erasure, she mentioned something about fulfilling a prophecy. Although Bronwyn found it very puzzling, she didn't ask further. After the memory erasure, she could escape her past and start anew. However, after Vandini's memory was erased, she panicked and fled the parking lot. Her friend, the American agent, chased after her. For some reason, the members of the Luggate organization appeared to block the way. Then, in her panic, Vandini involuntarily unleashed her powers, and killed everyone involved. The process of the matter had been roughly understood. However, there are still several points of doubt, especially regarding what Vandini was panicking about. Before her memory was erased, why did she proactively contact the Luggate organization for smuggling? Perhaps only Linda could answer these questions. So, Vandini went to the holding cell to find Linda again, asking her about the reasons behind these things. Linda didn't hide much, and revealed the truth as she knew it. A long time ago, within the Chikwe organization, there was a mutant who could predict the future. Vandini learned from this person that in the future, her memories would be deliberately erased, and she would be hunted. The key figure in this was a person who stood beneath the sea. Since learning this news, Vandini had been restless day and night. She kept pondering how to deal with this situation. However, the hint about the key figure left Vandini confused. After much thought, Vandini devised two contingency plans. These were the contents of those two keys. Linda was fully aware of all this, so when she met Vandini, she had already confirmed that Vandini had lost her memory, and she had repeatedly helped cover for her afterward. However, Vandini's preparations back then were disrupted by a banquet. At that time, everyone from the Chikwe organization attended that banquet. Then, in a commemorative photograph, Vandini suddenly noticed a banner above their heads. It had the word seabed written on it. Vandini immediately thought of the prophecy, and concluded that the ones hunting her were within the Chikwe organization. That was why she hurried back to her office, leaving behind that writing. Afterward, she contacted the Luggate organization, hoping that could quickly arrange for her smuggling out of the country, and escape from the Chikwe organization. Now, the truth has finally come to light. Vandini finally understood that it had all been a misunderstanding. There were no assassins in the Chikwe organization at all. Now, the only enemies were the ones from the Luggate organization that she had eliminated. So, she bade farewell to Linda, and prepared to escape with her sister. However, as she boarded the plane, she was attacked by a mysterious individual. When Vandini woke up again, she had been locked in a special container, and was trapped inside. Even if she wanted to use her superpowers, there was simply no way to do so. Eventually, those people used a special drug to put her back into a state of unconsciousness. When she woke up, she was already being sent to the buyer. What shocked her even more was that Linda had also been captured. What on earth was going on? It turned out that due to Vandini's accusations, and Linda's disobedience of orders, she had been dismissed. Moreover, the entire Chikwe organization was facing dissolution. Linda was deeply pained by this outcome, but there was nothing she could do. She could only urge Kelly to try to save the Chikwe organization. This was the effort they had built together, and the only place that could provide refuge for mutants. Although Kelly was also reluctant to let go of the Chikwe organization, the higher-ups had decided to disband it. He had no choice in the matter. Kelly simply handed Linda a confidentiality agreement. Seeing this situation, Linda could only sign the agreement in pain and return home. However, she was targeted by the Luggate organization. Under the surprise attack by the Luggate organization, Linda was quickly subdued by them. She, like Vandini, was taken to an auction. However, Vandini was also in danger at this moment, and had no ability to rescue Linda. Soon after, she was taken away in a transport vehicle. According to regulations, every so often, Vandini had to be injected with drugs to suppress her dangerous abilities. During one of these drug exchanges, one of the guards suddenly killed another. He then freed Vandini. After some communication, she learned that this person was an undercover agent of the Chikue organization. That was why he helped Vandini escape. Afterward, they contacted other members of the Chikue organization to inform them about Linda's situation. The Gestalts were the first to act. Using the shared perspectives of 4 people, they quickly broke into the auction and killed the security personnel here, saving Linda. Meanwhile, Vandini had arrived before the leader of the Luggate organization. This mob boss was instantly overwhelmed by Vandini's rage. Vandini finally resolved all her troubles. She prepared to say goodbye to Linda once more, but she found that Linda had already left. All that remained was a note. It stated that all the blame would be borne solely by her. She hoped to protect the Chikue organization. Because of this operation, the government recognized the role of the Chikue organization. The decision to disband was retracted. Vandini had no intention of leaving. Instead, she aimed to safeguard this organization that protected mutants. At the end of the story, everyone returned to their busy lives. After all these events, Monica decided to forget her lover, so she used Nachum to erase her memories of the American agent. The film concludes here. The TV series The Rook premiered in 2019. It is adapted from a novel of the same name. Compared to the original work, the film underwent significant changes. Unlike many fast-paced dramas, the first half of this series has a slower pace. It lays out mysteries everywhere, without providing any answers. This deepens the story, and truly tests the audience's patience. If you enjoy my channel, please click to subscribe.